Most people think they know what a pit bull is: a loyal dog, misunderstood, unfairly demonized by the media. The kind of animal that, with the right owner, is nothing more than an affectionate, playful companion. That image is incomplete. Not wrong in every detail, but dangerously incomplete. Because the version of the pit bull most people carry in their heads has been stripped of the one thing that makes it unlike any other dog on earth. Not its size, not its temper, not the way it was raised, its design. The pit bull is the only domestic dog in modern history that was purpose-built, over generations, through deliberate selection, to fight another animal until one of them couldn't get up. Every other dangerous breed was bred for protection, for herding, for hunting. The pit bull was bred for the pit, and the pit had one rule: you don't stop. That rule wasn't trained into these dogs. It was bred into them. And no amount of love, socialization, or responsible ownership can fully reach into 200 years of genetic selection and erase it. Here's what the numbers actually say. Pit bulls account for a disproportionate share of fatal dog attacks in the United States, consistently representing the majority of recorded fatalities across multi-year studies, while making up an estimated 6% of the total U.S. dog population. Independent researchers and government data sources have documented this pattern across multiple decades, though precise figures vary depending on methodology and how breed is identified at the time of incident. No other animal that lives in human homes produces statistics like this. Not Rottweilers, not German Shepherds, not any combination of every other breed combined. And yet, in the United States alone, there are millions of pit bulls living as family pets. To understand why this is happening, you have to go back to where this animal came from. In 19th century England, bull baiting was a spectator sport. Dogs were bred to charge at tethered bulls, latch onto the nose or throat, and hold. The Old English bulldog was the tool of choice, powerful, thick-necked, with a jaw built for clamping. When bull baiting was banned in 1835, the practice didn't disappear. It went underground and it got smaller. Instead of bulls, the target became other dogs. And instead of open fields, the venue became a pit, a contained space from which neither animal could escape. The bulldog was crossed with terriers, lean, fast, driven dogs bred to pursue prey into tight spaces and never give up. The result was something new. Something that combined the bulldog's jaw strength with the terrier's relentless, almost neurotic drive to keep going. Breeders called it the bull and terrier. We call it the American Pit Bull Terrier. Here's the part that most people gloss over. For the entire duration that pit fighting was popular, spanning generations, breeders didn't just select for aggression, they selected against inhibition. Dogs that hesitated were culled. Dogs that showed fear were culled. Dogs that bit and released, or gave warning signs before engaging, were culled. Only the dogs that locked in and kept going were allowed to reproduce. You are looking at the direct descendant of that process. Most dogs bite and release. That behavior is evolutionary. It's a warning, a signal, a way of saying back off without committing to a fight. Even aggressive breeds follow this pattern. It's built into canine social communication. Pit bulls were bred to eliminate it. Their characteristic attack pattern, documented by animal behaviorists and emergency physicians alike, is called the hold and shake. Once engaged, the dog locks its jaw onto a target and rotates its head, tearing tissue rather than puncturing it. This isn't learned behavior. It's a direct inheritance from the bull baiting lineage, where the goal was to stay attached to a moving, thrashing animal that weighed 1,000 pounds. But the mechanics of the bite are not the most dangerous thing about a pit bull attack. The most dangerous thing is what happens before it. Most dogs give advance warning: stiffening, growling, a hard stare, raised hackles. These signals exist to de-escalate. They give the other party time to back down before teeth are involved. They're ancient, preserved across nearly every domestic breed. In pit bulls, those signals were systematically reduced. Because, in the pit, showing your intentions early gave your opponent time to prepare. That was a liability, so over generations, the dogs that telegraphed least were the ones that survived and bred. The result is an animal that can transition from calm to full attack with little to no visible escalation. Trainers call this bite without warning. Emergency rooms see it every year. In 2011, Darla Napora was found dead in her home in Pacifica, California. She was 32 years old and pregnant. The dog that killed her, a pit bull raised from a puppy, described by everyone who knew the family as gentle and well-behaved, showed no prior aggression. An autopsy found no evidence of provocation. Her husband, in the days after, defended the dog. In 2017, a 3-year-old boy named Miles Leak was fatally attacked by 2 pit bulls in Loganville, Georgia. The dogs belonged to family members. The child had been around them before without incident. In 2021, 4-year-old Tanner Kinnaman was killed in Oak Grove, Kentucky. The dog had no history of aggression. The owner, by all accounts, was responsible and caring. These are not outliers. Researchers who study fatal dog attacks have identified a pattern that repeats across hundreds of cases. The dog was well socialized, the owner was responsible, and there was no prior record of aggression. Dr. Gary Patronek, a veterinarian and epidemiologist who spent years analyzing fatal dog attacks, found that in the majority of cases, the attacking dog had never shown aggression before the fatal incident. Not suppressed aggression, not prior incidents that went unreported. No prior aggression at all. This is the piece that makes the pit bull genuinely different from other dangerous animals. With most threats, the danger is legible. A venomous snake looks the part. A large predator signals its nature. Even other dangerous dog breeds tend to produce warning signs that experienced owners can read and manage. The pit bull's risk is structurally invisible, not because owners are careless, but because the biology was engineered to be invisible. Research into breed-specific behavior suggests that genetics play a significant role in a dog's baseline behavioral tendencies, including aggression thresholds, alongside training and environment. 2 pit bulls raised identically in the same home by the same people can produce entirely different outcomes, because what sits underneath the behavior is a genetic architecture assembled over 2 centuries of selection for exactly one thing. Some animal behaviorists who study pit bull attacks have described a pattern of sudden, unprovoked aggression with no apparent trigger, after which the dog often appears calm and disoriented, as if the episode has passed without conscious registration. The dog isn't pretending. Something activates, and then it doesn't. That is not a training problem. That is not an owner problem. That is a design problem. What science still cannot answer is this: which dog and when? There is no behavioral assessment currently used by shelters or veterinarians with sufficient predictive accuracy to identify which individual pit bull will attack. The American Veterinary Medical Association has acknowledged that no single-factor approach reliably predicts bite risk in individual dogs. Temperament tests, observation protocols, socialization histories, none of them reliably predict the moment the switch flips. This isn't a gap in knowledge that will be filled by better training programs. It's a fundamental limitation in our ability to predict the behavior of an animal whose most dangerous trait was specifically engineered to be undetectable. More than 30 countries have implemented breed-specific legislation targeting pit bulls: the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, Brazil. Hundreds of municipalities in the United States. Critics call it discrimination. Proponents call it public health. What the data shows is this: jurisdictions that have implemented breed-specific legislation targeting pit bulls have, in several documented cases, recorded reductions in severe and fatal dog attacks. The research is not uniform, and the debate is ongoing, but the countries that have maintained these laws for decades have not rushed to repeal them. We are not talking about whether pit bulls bite more than other dogs. We are talking about what happens when they do. The victims, as in every year prior, are disproportionately children under 10 and adults over 70. The most physically vulnerable people in any household. In almost every case, the dog is described the same way. Good with the family, never shown aggression, raised with love. None of that is a lie. That is genuinely how these animals are, most of the time. But you are not reading this because of what a pit bull does most of the time. You are reading this because of what it does once. Because when it happens, there is no wind-up, no warning, no window to react. Just an animal with 200 years of selective breeding behind it, closing the distance in under a second, doing exactly what it was designed to do. You won't see it coming. That was always the point.